Well, it happened. Magic finally banned a bunch of cards. My question to you is, which of these bans impacted you the most, and what cards do you think they may still ban down the road? Welcome to MTG Thursday Thoughts, and we're going to be talking about the ban and restricted list. We did put a quick video out the day it came out, but we want to do a full-on video talking about the whole deal of it. No one was surprised by the biggest one being that the One Ring got banned. Everyone knew that was going to get banned, and there's a reason behind that being banned, and I agree with it. It does stink that the price is dropping if you invested in it. We don't use Magic as investment, so to say. It does stink that it does, but here's the cool thing: it's going to still be about a $50 card. I always thought the card value was around $50. I never thought it was worth $100. I thought it was $50 to $75. Depending on the artwork, some of the artworks would be a little bit more valuable. But here's my thought on the whole thing. All right, because it was colorless and there was no, oh, you could only have one of these in your deck kind of rule on the card, they could have done that. It would have made things way better if it had just said you may only have one ring in your deck. But what it was is, so now you can, and once you get out there, you can just start stringing them together, give yourself protection for multiple turns, put them in the graveyard. Then if you have ways to bring it back, so you've got multiple ways, grabbing cards, all of this stuff, and you have ways where your opponents can't do anything for turns, and it sets you up to basically where you can just win the game long term. So you get 3 or 4 turns without having to be able to take damage or anything. It's pain. So, and the fact that like the majority of decks were running it, granted, I had an Storm deck was my first modern deck, and I put the One Ring in it because it just was there and did well and could do its own thing because, I put 2 of them. I didn't have 4. I only needed 2 because it wasn't vital to the deck. But there was once or twice where I was like, okay, I can't my combo right now, but I can get 4 mana and I can cast One Ring on turn 2. Yeah, why don't I cast One Ring on turn 2, give myself protection for a turn, and then be able to be set up because I can draw 3 cards before, the next by my next turn. So the fact that it could be put in almost any deck. Now my Psychic Frog deck, the Mirror Murktide deck, didn't have it and it didn't need it. Wasn't necessary, in my personal opinion. But almost every deck was running it, at least one copy, if not multiple copies of it, because of how strong and how good it was. So did it need to be banned? Yes, 100%. I believe Amped Raptor was like the smallest little slap on the finger. Yes, it was strong because of what it hit, because it could just hit into other things that kept doing stuff. But the problem is energy is still strong after the ban. Like, we're still going to see a large majority of energy going around and being played. Now, the funny thing is the unbannings. We'll talk about those in a minute. But I believe, like, energy is just taking the majority of large chunk of people playing energy because it's just a good deck. It's good, it's fast, it's quick, it does its thing, and it's hard to stop because it has multiple answers. And even if you can like remove one thing, there's another answer, and there's another thing coming out on this turn and that turn, and there's creating this and doing this, and it can be very, very, very annoying. Let's just put it that way. So how do we take care of it? How do we beat it? You take one of the pieces out, okay, that's okay. But there's still a lot of other pieces. I thought maybe Flays was going to get the ban. And I think we're still to see whenever the next ban list is. I think they're going to sit back and see. And then you had Zengatha, which was banned in both Pioneer, Explorer, and that. And I think part of that is just because the companion mechanic, I think they don't love it, so they've been trying to kill it. There's only like one companion, I think, that's left that you can actually play in any format that it's legal in outside of Commander, and that's Karuga, because of the fact that Karuga is so hard to build around and do everything around that it's just, at the moment, no one's running Karuga in the companion and everything. So Jengatha was just because in most decks you could still run it onto the side as long as, and it's very easy to keep the status, which I think is like you can't have multiple pips or whatever like that and things, if I remember correctly. So like I had it in my Pioneer deck, just because it was there. It was in a sideboard. But hey, it opens up a sideboard piece. And it was there to get, like, if I needed it and I got to it, I could cast it, get into my hand, cast it. It was never there to win the game. It was just an extra piece that was there, an extra free card, basically, so to say. But now I can open up a sideboard for another piece than that one. But, other than that, I don't know much about Legacy, but I've heard Psychic Frog was just going crazy with everything and all that fun stuff with Reanimator and allowing Reanimator and stuff. So it's interesting to see. People are complaining about Modern all the time and complaining about how the Modern Horizons 3 now changed it, but then everyone did the same thing with Modern Horizons 2. So I think what Wizards is, they sat back and said, okay, so you guys, are complaining about where we're at. Well, let's bring some of the original Boogeymen back into the format. So Mox Opal, opened up Affinity and opened up a bunch of other things. Then you go for Mox Opal. You then have, which Mox Opal, crazy the price they have. One of my buddies made a suggestion. He's wondering if maybe like in one of the new sets, maybe Aether Drift, there will be a Mox Opal, what is it called? Chase card, like a secret guest. I think that's not a bad idea. That would be interesting to see. That's why they kind of Splinter Twin, man. I'm curious to see how this is going to affect some things. It's going to be pretty crazy with Splinter Twin in the format again, and the things that people can copy and the grossness that people can do. So we shall see. The crazy thing is for a minute we're not going to really see it. Like, you're going to see it online some. There are some like local tournaments and stuff, but there's no RCQs that are modern until I believe later in the year. I believe like past the second and third quarters or somewhere in there. The first little bit is standard, and then we get into modern again. So you're not really going to see probably where there has to be an emergency banning or anything, because there's no major format at the moment. I think you've got like the SCG thing and stuff like that. So, but Splinter Twin, being a man, I think Faithless Looting is a good one. I like it. I'm probably going to run it in, replace the One Ring and put 2 Faithless Lootings in my, what's it called? My Storm deck, just because the drawing the 2 cards and discarding 2 cards, it sets up everything. Because literally, if I can get the cards even in the graveyard, they're fine in the graveyard, and then I can draw 2 more cards, and I can then have more cards to cast later on and stuff like that. So overall, I'm interested to see how this is going to change, what some of the cards we're going to see, some of the decks we're going to see coming out of it. I need to find some people to play Modern with, and hopefully beginning of the year, going to see some more stuff with Modern, some Pioneer, Standard, things like that, where I'm building decks and playing with people in person, either decks that I have built or decks they have. We'll have some longer form content hopefully coming out with this stuff. But these bans and unbans are very interesting to me. I'm glad they do unbans. I think they give it a test. There's a good chance 1 or 2 of them could end up back on the ban list, because you never know, as they print newer cards, things can come in and change things and make things harder, worse. We've got Affinity, kind of with artifact stuff, with Mox Opal coming back. You've got Aether Drift coming out, which is going to have a lot of artifact stuff in it. So to be curious to see if that'll affect anything in Modern at all. And now the fact that we're rarely, we'll probably see a Modern Horizons 4 set coming out, maybe in 2 years. So, right now we're kind of there's not going to be a Modern only set. You've got your remastered sets, which will bring some cards, more availability to certain cards in the past, but there's not bringing any new cards out except for basically all the standard legal sets. So it's going to be interesting to see with these different bans. No ban in Standard. Legacy had the 2 bans. Pioneer had Jangata, which we already talked about that. And, we shall see what's going to happen. Pioneer's kind of on the bench on the sideline at the moment, which I kind of hate, because I like Pioneer. It's a very fun format, and honestly a good secondary format people to get in. But I know we also need to push Standard, because if we can't get Standard going again, honestly, this is going to be Modern and Pioneer. People aren't interested, but I think Standard's in a great place. So my thoughts on the bans: well worth it. I feel like they could have possibly banned one other thing from Energy to shut it down, slow it down. But we'll see. Maybe that'll happen in something future. But there's my thoughts for the day. Hope you guys are doing well, and let us know your thoughts on these bans as well. And we appreciate you guys being here. And as always, we'll see you next time.